So today, Caitlin Clark released a water bottle. Yes, I mean this, a Gatorade water bottle. I think it's going to be impossible to get because this is a water bottle. Not only did it sell out, it was obviously going to sell out. The damn site crashed. The website crashed. The literal website, which was basically there for there to try sell obviously Caitlin Clark's water bottle, the Gatorade website, crashed. And it wasn't some nothing website. It was fucking Gatorade. It was Gatorade. The site crashed. Like, virtual queue for a bottle of Gatorade. Like, if you guys don't know, like, it was literally like, it had a crash website. They literally had it like it was Nike sneakers.
Caitlin Clark is moving like a one-person economy right now. A headline-grabbing Gatorade partnership, a product drop that sent fans into a frenzy, and a Forbes placement that frames her as the most influential name in women's sports. And while the internet celebrates the momentum, one detail keeps popping up in the background: Aja Wilson's reaction, and what it signals about the moment the WNBA is living through. Before we get into the opinions, the quotes, and the inevitable sides people are picking, start with the catalyst. This Gatorade rollout was not a standard commercial where an athlete holds a bottle, says a slogan, and disappears until the next ad cycle. It was positioned like a real consumer product launch, with a signature flavor, a name tied to Clark's personal story, and a release plan built for demand.
Rainberry, best Gatorade flavor that's ever been invented right here.
Try it and tell me if it tastes the same.
Even better than I remember. It's not even close.
And it's got your face.
That difference matters. Endorsements are usually image first. This felt product first. The kind of move brands reserve for athletes they believe can shift buying behavior at scale. A flavor is either worth the shelf space or it isn't. If it moves, it stays. If it stalls, it gets pulled. That makes the early performance the whole point, not an afterthought. And the early performance is what turned this from a sports story into a business story. When a drop is hot enough to overwhelm a site, it becomes proof of concept in real time. Not just that people like the athlete, but that they will spend because of the athlete. That is the line every brand cares about. Now, zoom out. When Forbes puts you in a power conversation, it isn't about points per game, it's leverage, it's attention. It's what you can move, sell, and influence with your name alone. So here's the question. If you are Aja Wilson, a champion and an MVP level talent, and you watch that kind of commercial gravity form around someone else, how are you supposed to feel? Is the frustration reasonable? Or is it the market doing what it always does, rewarding the person who pulls the most eyeballs, whether anyone likes it or not? When a new flavor moves that fast, it tells the company something very simple and very valuable. The demand is not only coming from die-hard basketball fans, it is coming from casual shoppers, impulse buyers, and people who could not tell you the score of the last fever.
Where this Gatorade water bottle was limited to 2,200. And you might be saying, okay, yeah, it's going to be really difficult to get, which, duh. Anything Caitlin Clark limited to 2,000 is going to be really, really tough to get. Because, again, anything with Caitlin Clark's name on it is like gold dust. We do know that. We know that is something that is happening. And we know in general that like Caitlin Clark merch sells like crazy. And we know, everybody knows, the first batch of the Caitlin Clark.
They are not buying because they are part of a sports community online. They are buying because the product caught their attention in a real-world shopping moment. That is the difference between noise and permanence. Social media can spike awareness. Retail velocity proves habit. The buyers that keep a flavor alive are the ones who pick it up without needing a full backstory. The ones who treat it like a normal choice in a crowded aisle. If that segment is showing up early, the brand is not just winning a campaign. It is building a long-term product. And that is why the reported $50 million figure matters, even if the structure matters more. Big numbers get headlines. Structures reveal beliefs. A permanent signature flavor is not a seasonal collaboration, not a short run designed to sell out once, and not a marketing stunt that disappears when the hype cools. It is a commitment that only makes sense if the company believes the athlete can drive consistent demand over time. 2 years ago, most people would not have predicted this commercial ceiling, at least not at this speed. But this is what the brand is signaling. They are not betting on a moment. They are betting on a market. Now zoom out and the scale gets even clearer because the Gatorade deal is not sitting by itself. It is stacking on top of an endorsement portfolio that reads like a corporate power list. Nike, State Farm, Wilson, Gatorade. These are not niche brands chasing a viral week. These are legacy companies that move carefully, protect their reputations, and spend big only when they believe an athlete has rare pull. Any one of those deals would be enough to define a career off the court. The fact that they arrived in the same era, in roughly the same window, creates a kind of commercial concentration that women's sports has almost never seen. It is not just that Clark is landing sponsorships. It is that she is landing the kinds of sponsorships that usually take a decade of dominance.
I've never seen anything like that before. A damn water bottle. A damn water bottle crashed the fucking site. Like, it's going to sell out in seconds. There are 2,200 Caitlin Clark fans that will spend $20 on anything that says the word Caitlin Clark on it.
Multiple titles, and a long runway of cultural familiarity. That is where the tension starts. Because when the business side moves this aggressively, the basketball conversation stops being only about performance. It becomes about leverage, visibility, and what the league is going to look like if one star can consistently command the biggest rooms in the building. When 4 of the biggest commercial brands in American sports culture align behind the same athlete in the same short stretch, it stops looking like a trend. It starts looking like an industry decision. Corporations do not commit long-term money at that scale because something is popular for a month. They do it because they believe the next decade is being shaped in front of them, and they want to secure a seat early. That is the context for why the Forbes recognition matters. Forbes does not operate like fan culture. It translates attention into power, and power into a ranking the business world understands. When Forbes labels an athlete the most powerful female athlete on the planet, that label becomes a signal to every brand that has been hesitating. It tells them that the window is real, and it is open right now. In the same ranking, Clark's placement also sent a quieter message. The only names positioned above her were executives, not athletes. People who run leagues, networks, and organizations. Among active athletes, she was the top line. That is not a basketball award. That is a leverage award. And the money behind it frames the point. Forbes credited Clark with massive off-court earnings right out of the gate, the kind of first-season commercial output that is almost unheard of in women's pro basketball. More importantly, the way that influence gets measured is not just by follower counts. It is by conversion. How many people respond when she posts? How many people buy when her name is attached? How many viewers show up when her team is on the schedule? That is where the conversation becomes hard for people who want it to stay purely about the sport. Because the receipts are visible. Arenas filling up. Ratings jumping. Merch moving. These are not vibes. They are numbers with timestamps attached. Now pivot to A'ja Wilson, because this is where the story stops being a spreadsheet and turns into a referendum on what the league values. Wilson is not a placeholder in this discussion. She is a champion, an MVP, a finals MVP, one of the best players of her era, and the kind of player whose resume normally makes her the face of everything. So when someone with that level of credibility reacts to Clark's commercial dominance, people hear it differently. It is not just a hot take. It is a window into the tension every league hits when a new star becomes the main economic engine before everyone agrees they should be. A'ja Wilson's basketball resume is not up for debate. If you are grading the sport strictly on production, impact, and consistency, she has a strong case as the most complete player in the league right now. She has the hardware, she has the dominance, and she has carried that standard long enough that nobody can dismiss it as a hot streak. Even her own brand milestones reflect that status, because you do not get a true signature line with a major company unless your excellence is undeniable. But the tension is not about whether Wilson is great. The tension is about what greatness buys you in a marketplace that does not run on fairness. Over the past couple of years, Wilson's public posture toward Caitlin Clark's commercial wave has read less like competitive edge and more like irritation with the attention economy itself. And that matters, because sponsors are not only tracking who wins games, they are tracking who stays composed when the spotlight tilts. At the center of Wilson's frustration is a recognition argument. The idea is simple. The league's most decorated, proven players should be rewarded with the biggest mainstream attention and the biggest commercial opportunities. In a world where endorsements perfectly matched on-court achievement, that framework would make sense. Wilson would be near the front of the line. The problem is that sports business has never worked that way. Commercial value is driven by reach, not righteousness. It is audience size, cultural presence, and the ability to pull in people who were not already watching.
I mean, you've got the likes of Nick Wright and stuff saying, they were like, well, nobody under the age of 35 in basketball is more popular than Caitlin Clark. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Like, I don't think anyone's really going to question that one. Like, under the age of 35, there is nobody, and I mean that when I say nobody, that is more popular than Caitlin. And that includes Wemby, that includes Luka Doncic.
It is whether a name travels beyond the core fan base and still means something to casual consumers. That is why Clark is different, not because she has already matched Wilson's career accomplishments, but because she has shown an ability to generate behavior from the outside. People who do not follow the league still buy, still click, still tune in when she is the subject. That is the metric brands pay for. The market is blunt. It rewards the athlete who expands the pie, not the athlete who most deserves the biggest slice. The smarter play in public would have been to acknowledge that reality, claim her own lane, and let her dominance speak without sounding like she is negotiating with the applause meter. The move Wilson made instead was to keep circling the commercial gap in public. Not once, not as an offhand moment, but enough times that it stopped reading like isolated frustration and started reading like a consistent stance. And that is where it gets messy, because the audience may treat it like drama, but brands treat it like risk management. Companies do not guess about this stuff. They track it. They have teams that monitor sentiment, conflict patterns, and how an athlete's name shows up in conversation when the spotlight is not flattering. When a player repeatedly attaches herself to friction with the most commercially powerful figure in the sport, the question inside a marketing department is not who is right. The question is whether the association helps the brand sell to the widest audience without backlash. That is the part a lot of fans miss. Sponsors are buying a story, not just a stat line. They want uplift, aspiration, and broad appeal. Consistent public tension with the league's biggest commercial engine can read like negativity, even if the underlying point is understandable. It can also read as insecurity, even if the athlete is actually confident. Perception is the product. Over time, the pattern becomes the headline. Comments, timing, social media interactions, and the overall tone start to blend into a single impression. Someone uncomfortable with the attention shifting. That impression can be costly. Not to Wilson's basketball legacy, which is already secured, but to her ability to widen her own commercial ceiling in the same moment. Meanwhile, the gap is being measured in real, verifiable ways. A website crashing during a product launch is a concrete signal of consumer demand. A major business outlet ranking an athlete's influence is a formal market assessment. Reports and industry data points that place Clark at the top of off-court earnings while she is still on a rookie contract are not opinions. They are indicators of what her name is currently worth outside the arena, and none of that changes because someone dislikes it. Brands do not negotiate with resentment. They follow momentum and conversion. Which brings us to the most revealing data point of all, and it is not a tweet or a quote. It is the Nike shoe situation, because that is where the league's commercial hierarchy gets exposed in a way nobody can spin. Clark's signature shoe has not even hit shelves yet, and the anticipation is already being treated like an event. Nike is building a full marketing runway around a product that, for a long time, did not even have a public release date. And that matters because most shoes need the launch to create the conversation. This one created the conversation before the launch. The attention is behaving like demand, and demand is the only thing brands care about when they decide how much inventory, promotion, and long-term planning to attach to an athlete. At the same time, the broader women's basketball shoe landscape has not generated anything close to the same level of consumer buzz. That is not a moral judgment. It is the market talking in the most direct language possible. Purchase intent, search interest, and the amount of energy a product can pull from people who are not already invested in the sport. Then another layer got added through earnings coverage. Multiple business and sports business outlets have framed Clark as the top overall earner in the league because the off-court money has grown that large, even while her playing salary remains on a rookie scale. That is a rare signal in any sport. It means the commercial machine around her has gotten so big that the contract becomes only one part of the picture, not the headline. Stack the receipts, and the pattern is hard to ignore. A major brand commits to a signature flavor as a permanent product. A major insurer makes a historic decision in its own endorsement strategy. A legacy equipment company treats her as signature level. A global sneaker giant builds anticipation infrastructure before the shoe is even out. A major business outlet frames her influence as unmatched among active athletes. These are not isolated wins. They are coordinated indicators pointing in the same direction. And this is why Wilson's public posture matters, not because it can erase what Clark is doing, but because it cannot. Public frustration does not undo a ranking. It does not reverse a product launch outcome. It does not pull back a brand's strategy after they have made a long-term bet. What it can do is create a narrative environment that makes other companies hesitate when they consider their own investments. Wilson's on-court greatness is secure. She is elite, full stop. But the off-court hierarchy is not determined by fairness or by resume alone. It is determined by reach and conversion, by who expands the audience and who moves product beyond the core base. Clark built for that from the start. The market responded, the brands followed, the numbers confirmed it. Complaints do not change the data. They only make the contrast sharper. This is where the story stops being about who is the better basketball player and becomes about who is the bigger economic engine. A'ja Wilson can be the most dominant force in the league and still lose the off-court race to a player who pulls an entirely different audience into the building. That is not an insult to Wilson. It is a description of how professional sports has always worked. Basketball merit matters. It matters to coaches, to teammates, to banners, to history. But the marketplace is not a meritocracy. It is an attention economy. It rewards the athlete who can reach people who were never going to care in the first place, then convert that attention into tangible behavior. Tickets sold, jerseys moved, products bought, websites overwhelmed. That is why brands do not treat Caitlin Clark like a normal endorsement partner. They treat her like an acquisition. That is also why the public frustration has been such a losing play. Not because Wilson is wrong to want respect or wrong to want the league's marketing to reflect the best players. She is not. But because the argument is aimed at the wrong target. You cannot guilt the market into changing its behavior. You cannot shame consumers into buying a different bottle. You cannot pressure a brand into ignoring the one athlete who keeps delivering measurable outcomes. The numbers do not have feelings, and the companies signing these checks do not either. The only move that closes a gap like this is building your own bridge to the outside audience. It is creating a story that travels beyond the league's core fans without needing an explanation. That is what Clark has done. And it is why the gap looks so wide right now. Every time the conversation turns into public friction, it does not weaken Clark's position. It reinforces it. It reminds everyone which name is driving the biggest reactions, and it makes the contrast impossible to hide. So if you are watching this and wondering what is real and what is noise, here is the simplest answer. Clark's commercial dominance is not a theory, it is backed by behavior. Wilson's greatness is not a theory either. It is backed by championships and performance. The conflict comes from pretending those two currencies have to match. They never have. And this is exactly why The next year in the WNBA is going to be a pressure test, not just for players, but for the entire league's identity, because the market has already picked a centerpiece. The question is how everyone else responds. If you want the unfiltered breakdowns, the receipts, and the business side of every headline around Caitlin Clark and the WNBA's new power era, you already know where to be. Subscribe to Courtside Leaks, and I will see you in the next one. We've got every angle covered, every leak, every backstage twist, every moment they won't show you. Hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. Stay locked in with Courtside Leaks, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.